Hey, Brandon.
Hi there, Mike.
It's a little quiet up here.
Uh-oh. Are you solo?
At the moment, it's just me and you, Brandon.
Oh,
I thought
wow.
I thought we had a couple of people coming, but I haven't seen Phil yet at the conference. He might have had flight troubles, and this 10:30 was like within 15 minutes of them shutting down the main tent discussion, so you had to leave early. Uh,
Okay.
and yeah, right in the middle of the conference. You know how that goes.
That I do.
Yeah. It's got to be early for you.
Yeah, it's 5:30 and GWU was having
Right.
their open source conference the past 2 days. So I was in conference mode over on the East Coast here.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It might make sense to just go ahead and call it.
Well, we will see. But I did see the apparently the Lima session was overlapping, so that might explain Akihiro not being
Uh,
able to show up.
well, if he even saw it,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if he had planned to come. We don't have an agenda, right? So
There was no agenda, so we can talk about anything anybody wants to chat about. Usually these things bring out a fair number of runtime, container D, that kind of group.
right. Yep. Yep.
Folks like
Usually,
yourself.
yeah, exactly. But I can sweep the room here if we need to.
Uh, well, thanks for representing at the very least. We'll
There you
give
go.
folks a few minutes.
Yeah. All right. We'll put the recording on mute here too.
Okay.
Okay.
The other thing is that all the keynote people, I was on the showroom, and all the keynote people were coming, and it was super complex to get here because you need to, well, it was like white box,
Against the floor.
but it was a huge floor.
I speak to the keynotes.
I had to meet with an old colleague. I worked at Susie, and I didn't see her since like 5 years or something. It's nice to meet with your old colleague.
I was just exactly right
Ah,
now.
the woman
Yeah, I understand. Okay. But just like a few seconds ago, I was also meeting our ex-Nokia colleague. Like I haven't seen him for like 15 years.
15, right?
Yes.
That's right.
So where does he live now?
Somewhere in Switzerland. I think he mentioned like stock exchange.
Okay.
You work in Finland, right?
Yeah, he was in Finland. Yes.
But you both.
Yeah, we are both in Finland. Yes.
Yes.
There are a lot of people there.
Hey, Brennan.
Ah, you're connecting.
We
I
we have,
live.
we have more people. Yes. Oh, yeah, we're connected. But
I'm
you
mostly just here to make sure the
real
Zoom is
suspect.
working.
And Antonio, of course, and oops, I can point this down.
Welcome, welcome. I'm
Hey,
just mostly here to make sure the Zoom is working, that nobody Zoom bombs you.
yeah. And I don't know if you know Kristen Licky yet,
No,
Brandon.
probably have never met.
Well,
You
you probably seen some patches from him, like with lib container 1.3 spec disaster.
Oh yeah,
But
yes. I
Christian was
was
fixing it.
fixing upside some things, yes.
Brandon's been working on a conformance test suite for the
Okay.
distribution API.
Okay. Cool.
Hey,
Oh, hey. Hi, sorry. Sorry.
Actually, people found with information
yep,
about that.
yep. Yeah, and they also said, Brandon, that Akihiro was seen walking in this direction.
No, I
So-
saw he was walking past.
Oh,
So,
never
okay,
mind.
he was
Went somewhere else.
Yeah.
Probably hall. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on in the hall. In the, the general.
I would imagine if the Lima session was overlapping, I feel like that might be something he would show up to.
Yeah. Yep.
It's the usual problem with KubeCon. You cannot be everywhere.
Right. They seem to sort
Indeed.
by subject matter.
Yeah,
So
like,
everything on one
if
subject
you're-
at the same time. Yeah.
If you're interested in the same, oh well, actually, in diverse subjects, like there are still good chances what it will overlap.
Ah, funny. Yeah. So we have no agenda, Brandon.
Well,
It's ad hoc, whatever you guys would like to discuss.
I wanted to discuss the network stuff. It's not strictly OCI part,
Right.
but it's about like the whole like life cycle. So I saw what Zappa was again trying to propose something.
The one, it's he's his partner in crime, right?
Yeah, yeah. I don't see he's dialed in, but yeah. Basically, the concept is we did CNI almost a decade ago.
More than decade.
It's been a long time, at least 8 years, right? Since we've started loading it, and it was a default, set up for bridge networks and Xylem, and those sort of network setups. And today, when we do loopback, for example, we call it directly, and just use some of the Linux system services already set up and available for network setups. So we don't have a declarative contract per se. We've got a JSON, but it's not in YAML and it isn't exposed the contract of how you're going to actually do the execution of the setup of the networks, not just the pod network, but also the all your tertiary multi-network stuff, right? So right now, what they have to do is set a config for the network. We reload it and make sure it's still clean. And then the next pod that comes in, we use the reloaded network config, which is really just a set of plugins, right? CNI plugin configs that we call. And so the concept here would be instead of doing that, let's have a network service on the host, not unlike the CRI that could actually set up a network at particular points in time, right? We'd also like to modify how we do pods in the kubelet to support additional states. So we figured if we change how pods work to be create and then start, between the create and the start gives us a good opportunity, right? We can also have an additional pod, a pod networking mode. Right now you have pod network or host, and then there's user namespaces can be set up for networking, but there's no, this kind of model. So I think he was talking about doing an actual networking sandbox.
But Mike, there is a problem with that. So it works for normal containers. As soon as we start to have like VMs or confidential VMs, this network service become a problem. So
It has to be set up first and then wired over.
I mean, like if we
Bridge.
look to just like pure OCI runtime,
yeah,
it might be better not. Well, it might be better to just pass enough information what the runtime can do by itself. Like let's say like setting IP addresses or like injecting interfaces and so on. But the reason for that is what like you don't need to be dependent on what is happening inside VM. You tell, for example, like to Kata, like you need to do that, and what
Right.
what is behind the scenes to achieve that end goal
I,
will be hidden inside kata.
I agree with the argument. So now additionally, we would need to be able to do that at the pod level because that's where we set up the network.
Yes, and when we are stepping back, so when
So it's not the OCI spec.
yeah, I
yet.
know, I know, I know.
Yeah. Which is another conversation. Brandon, you knew this was coming.
Yes,
If we had a set of containers specification manifest, if you will.
Yes, and that is another story. So practically right now, like Podman now have the idea of a pod.
Yeah.
Docker have the idea of compose.
Yeah.
Pretty much like same implementation. Kubernetes have pods. So like all of them have idea of like group of containers work with common lifecycle.
Right.
So I think I said like last year, we need to come up with spec what will describe a combination of containers.
Okay. Would you like to run the work group? Do you have time? Or
time might be not so much, but it's not about the time. I actually last year or even year before I already forgot when I was tried, but so I tried to look what we have currently in OCI spec, what kind of this bundle RunC is expecting,
right.
and I haven't actually found the good way how to organize. So I might need help from somebody who knows a bit better than me to actually like to have a like brainstorming session, like what we can actually do.
Right. We could use Antonio and
The
Akira Suda would need to be in there, I think.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump into that. The main problem when we did all the Linux network interfaces is that there is a mismatch, architectural mismatch between what a network namespace is and a process namespace is.
Mhm.
And that's what causes the friction because at the end the pod entitles multiple processes, but just a single network stack. And I don't know what other namespaces are.
By entering the pod
Yeah.
namespace for each container.
Right.
Well, it's something what we can see like if it should be like that for forever or not. I mean, like for Kubernetes, it's like network namespace equal pod.
Right.
But for generic thing,
That's exactly the question I wanted to express that we need to sort, right? The network namespace equal pod, or is a primitive that somehow there is a one-to-one mapping, or it can be different. I think that knowing the primitives and defining this concept of pod and what are the relation between these primitives is what we need to expect clearly. Because this is the problem is the containers grow over the Linux kernel primitives with C groups and other things, but then all these projects started to create assumptions, and those are not enforced.
yeah. I agree with your statement.
We need to teach RunC claims probably, or the other one.
No.
But I think that the important thing is you need to make clear a spec of what it means, with all these primitives instead of, some project that came with this that aggregated all the things and eventually, you have
Right, a declarative contract.
The declarative contract, yes, and inside OCI right now we have it only per container. So the whole pod thing is like artificially reusing the same thing.
All through the kubelet and pod spec,
Yeah.
right? And I say
No,
that
it's not about
specifically because we don't get the entire pod spec today. We only get a portion, a subset.
let's
But
separate.
if we had an OCI pod spec,
Well,
then
OCI pod spec, yes, it's what I'm coming to. But I mean, like even if we would have the OCI pod spec, we still can have overrides in the container level. What like, well,
oh yeah, you'd have to.
like we don't have,
You have
as
additional
Antonio,
limits.
as
with
Antonio
respect to-
said, like nothing forces it. So like
Right.
it's potential. Like we can target as a first thing to like to how to say, to be compatible with what network stack assumed in Kubernetes or Docker or Podman, doesn't really matter. Like all of them right now are considering as a network for a whole group of containers, right?
Yes.
But nothing prevents us to have a like, well, like lousy statement in the spec. What like, yeah, if you want for container individual network namespace, you can do it.
Or
If somebody really wants to have it.
I think that you touched in an important topic that is the VM problem. That's when
Yeah.
things get complicated because then you start to nest network stacks, right?
No, of course.
Yeah, but that's why I'm saying it. You need to really define it. If this is the pod, this is the context, this is the network, right? If you have something inside, you need to make your way to fulfill the contract of the expectation of the pod, not inside you do whatever thing and then
And
Yeah.
that's my problem with network service. So like, I don't really like a situation when, like, for example, like with Multus or something, what like goes and directly tries to do something in the container namespace.
because
That's the only way I know.
yeah, people need to find a way, and they found, it's invasive, and everybody
Yes.
agrees that they don't want to do it that way. But that's why I think that Zappa and they are touching on the right questions. But my feedback to Mike and the other thing is, look, there is a lot of assumptions, there is a lot of projects, there is a lot of ecosystem. So it's not as easy as, oh, I'm going to define the API. I think that the first thing is what you're saying is, oh, let's define to the people that create containers what are the rules and build on top of that. Because then somebody will break and it's a hard break on something so stable. How
Yeah, it would have to be a standard Kubernetes kind of style, alpha again, then maybe beta.
I
It
mean,
would take a few years probably.
yeah, but I don't think that
But
we
we can
worry
keep
about
with the
that.
default, right? That's why I was saying if you did it by pod mode, like by network mode, as a pod, or you could just have a new
It
mode.
has to be in additive, right? What
Yes.
we cannot do is to say, oh, since 135 you have a new CNI, whatever thing that doesn't work. I mean, you
Right.
leave that with Container D 2.0, right? It's super
Yeah.
hard to get people out of a stable version.
But you guys are both right. Maybe we don't call it pod, maybe we call it sandbox, a sandbox manifest.
Well,
I'm
I'm
pod
bad with
is a sandbox.
I'm
It's
bad with naming, so like whatever it will be called, fine for me.
then you could say in the
regarding-
manifest whether it's going to be virtualized or not.
Regarding this service, what Zappa was initially proposing, like Christian, remind me, what was like some like different direction of communication was.
So basically, so compared to what we have been earlier trying, so we had a colleague who was trying to do this kind of additional flexibility on top of the current CNI model. And there it was so that, so it was this traditional NRI way of doing things. So the runtime knows that something needs to be done, and then it calls out if you have an NRI plugin who indicated that I'm interested in networking and I might do some additional parameterization.
Yes.
But in Zappa's model is the opposite. So it's not so that these calls are triggered basically by the runtime, but it was so that the service was calling into the runtime and says that I want you to do this for me. So, and this is, I think, something that Derek didn't like. At least
Yeah, and for us, it's also like the opposite model. Like we were like previously thinking always as an event driven by the CRI. So like as soon as like Kubelet says like I want to start something, for us it's the time to do something.
So there are certain points in the life cycle of a pod or a container where you might want to do some extra parameterization, and then you call out to somebody who registered an interest for that extension point. That was our thinking always.
Yeah.
Also for the networking when we were doing this experimentation.
But for Zappa it was like completely opposite. Like he was practically like asynchronous even to the container runtime, saying like now for this container or pod do something. And that was what triggering our discussion. Why like that?
I think it depends whether you're looking from the bottom up or you're looking from the top down. If you're looking from the top down, it's more like a DRA claims for networking. Is the style I think he was going for. But then from the bottom up, it would still just be new primitives that get passed over. The contracts would be passed over to the standard CRI API. On run pod or create pod sandbox, it would have the additional information like which balloon do you want to use if you wanted to go with the balloons model. We'd have to figure out how we want to.
It's a separate story, but well, I mean, like DRA was supposed to be in a way what like the kubelet prepares the resource,
Right.
But at that point, it's still not, well, the container does not exist yet.
It
Pod-
would-
pod-
it would
pod-
know
pod-
at that
pod- pod- pod not
Or it
exist.
could know, right? The CRD could know and set up sort of like a webhook.
Your driver is aware of what is requested.
Right.
Like you got the allocation, but at that point, you are still not enforcing it. You are telling to the runtime through the CDI, saying like, here's what you need to do to
I see what
enforce
you're
it.
asking. Yeah.
So here, I think it's exactly the same. Like, well, Antonio, in the ArrayNet, you implemented that, right? So like you have like allocation, and when through an array you are injecting a result of it, or you are directly
Yeah.
into container.
The thing and the model that works, and especially it's critical, we have a lot of bugs in networking, is that the life cycle on your runtimes are not consistent. In the terms of cryo implemented in SAN hooks, and in containerd you move it from 1.6 to the 2.0 in a different way. You start preparing the pod samples and whatever, and there are some failures that
Okay.
that when they fail, the hook was in one place and now it's another place, and it leaks a piece of whatever. But that's not important. What I want,
I'd have to look at it.
what
Yeah.
what Sapa fixed it like 1 month ago.
Okay.
What I'm trying to say is that the one important thing for networking with the runtime that doesn't exist yet is to know when exactly the networking need to do, what need to do, and what happens when it fails. That is not defined. That's totally now.
Consistency between the runtimes.
It's not. It's just.
Which is
That's
why
that's why I'm asking
that's
for
why
CRI protocol to be
Okay.
completely declarative.
Well, that and
right. And then we could call to this new networking sandbox service through gRPC.
And people can
Well-
build on the assumption that I'm running in this place, when I
Yeah.
fail, this happens, and the other thing that doesn't exist today, and we need to do it. The way that it works in the ArrayNet is I'm going to the kubelet. I know all the Kubernetes things that I need to do. I prepare kind of my state. I did it. Is not the standard. Is the way it works. And
Yeah.
then I send it to the runtime. The runtime only doesn't think, executes only.
Yeah.
The problem we have with CNI and the plugins is that they don't execute. They start to do things in the middle of the container and the
The
sandbox
runtime
creation.
sandbox. Yeah.
And that's a source of instability and problems, because
If there's
especially
any
now,
delay, timeouts, anything like that.
and then the thing, especially now with all this agentic and all the things, they want super fat startup.
Cycles. Yep.
Yeah,
Go
and
fast.
then the problem
You
is
have permission for 2 minutes.
yeah, and then I go here and okay, my only network hook is this, so I'm going to spend here like 10 seconds doing a lot of calculations and whatnot and with everything, and then eventually I come back.
Yes.
So those are the pain points we have, and the model that I implemented in the ArrayNet that is working well is in the kubelet. I am still not creating something. I'm not in the critical path. I can do my estimations calculation there. I'm still not consuming resources. I'm still
Okay.
able to do things. When I execute in the runtime, I need to go fast. I don't need to think. I need to know. I need to give this
Right.
repeat, this interface.
You're signing the device now. Let's go.
Yeah. So that's why I
Network
think
bus.
I didn't check in the latest thing is we need to be super careful on round tripping and what means round tripping and how long are these operations going to take.
Yep.
Because that is the source of problems in networking today.
Yeah, that's again why we're thinking there needs to be a change here because of the original design of forking to a dozen plugins, and each of those plugins are actually then doing a gRPC to the global instance of the network support, right? The asylum, whatever.
That's
Yeah, Big Damon.
The
But-
question is, I don't know where to put that and how to articulate that, because then the Kubernetes network model is so simple, and a lot of demands of things that I see people trying to put into this special service sounds like a slippery slope that is going to make this problem worse, because
Yeah.
people are going to say, oh, I have an API, so this is super juicy. I'm going to put a lot of things, networking things here, and this is going to be in the critical path. And sorry, I
hear you.
started to
I'm with
narrow,
you.
but the question is that the main problem that I see is where do you put this stuff? What do you allow to do in that stuff? And what are the expectations of the people to do there? The other thing is you also need to handle the problem. The other problem with the networking is you just from one pod network namespace. You need to handle that there has to be a kind of an owner, right? The one that configures the main interface, so the default route, because you don't want multiple people. People want to share things, but then you need to handle conflict resolution. It's not like in the other, you have some C groups, somebody there is only one owner. With networking, a lot of people want to expand the API and create a lot of owners. But then you can say, oh, I can do an API and everybody do whatever, but then we are going to own the disaster of people changing
Yeah,
configurations.
yeah. And the cluster autoscaler also needs to know whether or not that topology is available, right?
Right.
No,
So
it's a secondary thing. Yeah.
yeah, but the designing an API, I was talking with Samuel a lot on NRI and this designing an API that assumes one owner and some people
An aggregator, yep.
aggregate
Yeah.
it's super tough to do it right. It's
Well,
Oh. Wait, so yeah, I
Yeah,
guess
but-
the thought there was if you were in that new mode, we would know, okay, we're going to initialize via this a gRPC that's been passed to us and configured, right? And that could be this that'll be the singleton when we're doing our init
Yeah.
for the pod,
But-
right? It doesn't have to be our code. Well, we could bind it in if you want, if we're doing another staging repo.
Look,
if you-
I'm up. This is a problem that has been here forever. It's just a matter of putting people to work together in a solution and
Right.
agree on.
Yep.
Well, how I see the problem, like how to do it like systematically over all layers. So first problem is CRI. We need to have a clean, declarative and state interface for the pod lifecycle. So like we need separate create container, we need separate message about like start network with proper response like yes, network is started. So not like currently it's cramped into run pod set box.
Mhm.
We need to have same update and tear down events for the pod. So what's the like upper layer part. When second layer, like inside runtime, we can create a separate service, or we can just piggyback on NRI.
We could, yeah.
So like extend the NRI to also expose those like whole sandbox events. Well, we already have some, but like to update the protocol to have a full sandbox event and add also this separate additional hooks to the network. So previously we prototyped it for CN, like wrapping with CNI pre-config and post result.
Sure.
But like if we will have a dedicated events, we can have it like whatever parameters we
That would
want.
be great.
Sure. And then you can just do the adjustments for the
And
networking
and
from
when-
a
Yeah.
plugin
Yes.
that's already running. So
Mike,
Mike,
and when the third part is actually with OCI pod description or sandbox description, whatever you call it, a group of containers.
Yeah.
So when we can have it as a like declarative on the like OCI spec, so like the VM based runtimes, we will not be going inside VM to do something. We will just instruct those VMs. But that will like in addition probably disrupt with sandbox or shims layers. So
we're talking about moving the sandbox API down into the shim.
okay, well, yeah.
And talk to the Red Hat guys about also being able to do that for Conmon. So if we do that, then yeah, we could load a sandbox.
So
and
the question is like with all those like three parts, do we want to start thinking about them all together, or we will go like up from up to down,
Swim upstream.
or from down to up layers?
You can't really ignore either of them. So
No,
you could split them up into different work
But-
groups, but yeah.
But the question is like where we start. Like
Well-
with DRA, we started with CDI, so we did it from the runtime and then starting to go
Right.
up in the stack.
So you start with annotations, right? in the pod spec and you just pass them through to NRI, and then NRI works differently for this new plugin, right? I'm just saying you could, one way to start is just use what we already
but
have.
like NRI in this sense, like is just a middleman. So like it needs to get the good input, and we don't have good
Yeah,
input
that's
because
the
of
problem. That's so we
Yeah.
wouldn't like to go with. So what we were prototyping with this hooking into the current CNI setup, that ended up being so ugly in a way that it.
Well, practically we had like only two places where we can intercept the events. Like one event is like runtime detected what the CNI config changed. So we got the new parsed config. We can post process it and return it to runtime saying like, hey, what you read is not actually the thing. Like here's what you should think you read. So it's one integration point. And second integration point was actually when runtime was actually calling that config. So after it executed whatever is present in the config, we got like list of IP addresses, so we can just alter that list. But that's the only thing what it was possible to do in runtime. So if we extend in NRI protocol, we just need to think like what will be the appropriate points of integration.
You just need two hooks, right? Right now you have rampart samples, and then within rampart samples there is a moment in the code that you call pod network start, something like that. That's the one that goes to the CNI thing with the file and executes. So if you go there and you say within rampart samples is provide pod network config, that whatever that it means, that's the hook. There are three hooks, honestly, and one is when you are removing the samples, the pod stop thing.
Yeah, stop and then remove. Yeah,
The question and the
and restart and yeah.
the key thing here is the problem with CNI is that it mixes configuration with execution.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that if you try to follow that pattern, doesn't apply to this new thing that we try to do, right? It works for a static thing that you change the file and execute something.
Yeah, and let's say like we tried with approach and it's not good, so we need to define the new one.
But that's what I say. It's in Rampart Sandbox, you get some spec and you do whatever, right? The namespace is another thing. What I think we need to define is within Rampart Sandbox is give me pod network or whatever thing, and define that content.
And I was
what is it?
cheating when I said annotation. You could start it out just JSON or YAML you're passing over as a label.
So how do you think that, okay, if we do this, because one question will be, as we discussed earlier with Mike, that, okay, so fine, but don't break anything that I have. Everything needs to work exactly as it works now for me, because I have all these, things, and I don't want to migrate over here. My existing workloads, existing clusters, everything needs to work as such. So basically what I want to ask is that would you hide eventually the current CNI-based network setup behind this new interface?
That's why I
Or would it
was
be-
mentioning before is the problem is that you have a singleton. You cannot go away of that. So right now the singleton is CNI, and the way the people implement is creating a multiplexer, right? But the multiplexer still have the concept of a principal, right? So this API has to be, the problem is that is you can call somebody and say, okay, give me this IP, right? But the problem is that how do you implement the people that is going to work on top of that want to add additional interfaces, that want to add subnet, that want to configure DNS, and what the thing is, who is the principal? How do you identify that? Is the first thing connect? There are 2 or 3 connecting to that gRPC service? That's
Well, so Antonio, the way how we dealt with that in NRI is actually we are also trying to enforce like single ownership of a parameter. So practically, like we can have a chain of plugins, and all of them can propose adjustments.
okay.
But if 2 or more plugins try to modify the same parameter, when we are saying like, sorry, you have a misconfiguration, like we are not like error.
Then
But that doesn't apply to the parameters which is like additive. So like you can have one plugin which inject the mount path or like environment variable, and you can have another plugin which also inject additional the environment variable. Only if they start to conflict, only when it will be error
And
situation.
even for that, we have mechanism for, I think, all of the parameters that if so there is a mechanism built in which says that I know that this will conflict, but trust me. So I need to override the previous one, but it doesn't happen by accident. So you need to indicate that I know this will happen, but I know what I'm doing, and then it can go forward. It's not flagged as an error. So
But what's invalidator plugin, right?
no,
No?
no.
Okay.
So basically, for instance, for a mount. So if you try to put the same mount in that somebody else put, so first you have to indicate that hey, I want to delete the previous mount because otherwise it conflict, and I will do now my mount, and then it's not an error.
Okay.
So we have
Yeah,
all these kind of things that because sometimes this in NRI sometimes
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is not
yeah.
necessary.
But I mean, coming back to the networking case, so like I see no problem of, let's say, like multiple plugins adding the list of IP addresses or adding the DNS search entries, or like additional DNS name, DNS IP entry. So
Proxies, whatnot, yeah.
what is fine. But if like multiple plugins will say like, hey, this is with two different default routes, then probably we need to stop and say like, hey, you have like two plugins which is misbehaving with each other.
Yeah, okay. I think that I want to come back to the original thing. So one thing that can be possible is if we are able to do this, assume this hook compatible with existing CNI is a good litmus test. Imagine that we do this hook and we take the existing CNI code and we do a shim that uses the CNI array and uses this hook and everything works fine. That will be something that, okay, we know that this model of hook works, and then let's think what things we can add on top and extend this hook.
So first would be to put in the infrastructure, but keep the existing CNI.
And then you have something to iterate that you know that doesn't break anything, but you already have a hook. And once you have the hook, you have all this NRI plumbing and API that you have that we can start to add annotation additive and not be a breaking change. But what I try to say is there are two ways. If we try the model that is NRI is forking and say, okay, I have this CNI path in container D and cryo that calls whatever thing, that is very erratic. But imagine that you have we implement this hook and we make this CNI call to call this hook. And then once we have this hook, we already have something that we can expose and say, okay, let's start to do adjustments on this hook. And then you can say, okay, this was a bad idea or this was a good idea. Because the problem that I see here is if we try to design by committee, we are going to end in a deadlock when we go to IPAM, DNS.
Yeah, and that's
Or somewhere in the end.
Yeah, you know the thing, right? And that's why I say if we are able to put the hook and then let people, oh, do your stuff, and they say, okay, this is a disaster. People is adding whatever thing. Oh, this is really working really well. But the main thing is we need to remove the existing code that calls CNI that is even now. I mean, they have the CNI spec, but only use some of the fields and some of the fields are skipped. It's
Yep.
really.
Yep, go CNI and
Differently done, partially.
yeah, they are done.
Cryo,
Yeah, we do it
container
differently.
D.
Yeah, so
We're common at the NRI layer, but not,
imagine
how we
that
set
you
network.
have the hook with a well-defined life cycle, and we take all this CNI code and we call the hook.
Right.
That gives us proof that this model is working in production, and then once we have the hook, we are happy with the life cycle. We can say, okay, let's start to do adjustment and let's start to add new fields or whatever thing. So you start to create an additive API because at the beginning it's going to be IP. I don't know.
It's gotta be
additive,
additive,
IP and whatever thing. But then you can start to add things, and they are going to be additive. So the new clients are going to be compatible with the old clients. So we don't break things.
So Antonio, what I'm struggling to understand what you are proposing. So like we got the runpod sandbox request from here, right? Currently, what it does, like it executes the CNI plugin, which does something directly to the container namespace, right? So like here we have like two hooks or two places what we can have. Like one is related to config and one is actually related to like execute that config for this pod, right? So
what I'm saying is imagine that we have another hook here. That is the networking thing, okay?
Mhm.
Or it can be inside NRI or whatever thing.
Okay.
So, and imagine that we make this to curve here
Mm.
and to curve here.
To first migrate the existing
Yes.
stuff over to a new
Right.
infrastructure, which is more flexible.
I-
We are-
If we are able to do this and this work
Then-
perfectly compatible, then we just here we
Then
can
that
start
plugin
to
could be a
build.
CNI one. You could have a CNI NRI plugin that did everything there.
What I'm trying to ask. So, do you expect what we will be like inside of these hooks? We will be executing the old CNI plugins, or we want to have like completely new infrastructure here.
This what I'm saying is this has to be a kind of a gRPC or API,
Right.
yes, the send response thing.
Yeah, but that's
And
NRI
we move all this code like you did with the NRI 0.1 to the other thing. You move from
Right.
executing plugins to a gRPC thing, and you have a compatible layer, right?
Mm.
You are still if you do the same exercise,
Mm.
we move the code, this code to be an NRI plugin, it will be perfectly backwards compatible. This thing will read and
So
Yeah.
what you are saying is like we will have a NRI CNI plugin which will be executing with CNI configs for
We move it.
compatibility.
yeah,
we move it.
and that will be the standard because it's the backwards compatible thing. But if we have that and we are confident the lifecycle works and it's perfectly backward compatible, then we have this hook. And then it's a matter of adding adjustments, new fields, and whatever thing in an incremental way and being backwards compatible. What I'm trying to say is this gives us
Well,
a
well-
path to move to a more
Yeah, but the question is like, so, okay, like imagine like we have a protocol here, right? And like you can have like multiple plugins. So,
Sorry, Brandon.
some plugin we can, we
Oh,
can,
right,
we
yeah,
can have
sorry.
it like,
We could probably put that up so you can see it.
we take photos and say
One.
so practically we can have a plugin which will be called like CNI compat, which will be executing with CNIs,
yes.
like with the standard configs. But when we can have like something called like new network, right? And this will be like completely independent from CNI, but the idea will be like it somehow handles the setup of a network, right?
This is the thing I don't want to go ahead of myself because this is the thing that I can see how it can go one way or the other
Yeah.
depending on the people. But what I see is that this is something that I think that open us and block us to move forward.
Yeah, but Antonio, there is a big difference in those two things. So, like how we will be designing with hooks and what will be the parameters or data passed in those. So, like if we are primarily targeting to be backward compatible with CNI, it means like we need to, well, we know what CNI replies, right?
Yes.
So that will be our like always the interface. We know what like CNI plugins require configs in the JSON formats. So it also will be like the first design of what is passing to this
Yeah,
plugin. But the question is like, do we really want to add, or we will have, or we want to have like more of some declarative
no, this has to be, this cannot pass the CNI JSON thing. So it has to be, at this point in ramp sandbox, it has to be a runtime response. What do I need? I need an IP address, a route, or whatever.
But wait, Antonio, this is a critical point. So who reads the CNI config? So will it be read inside that box, or will it be still read like here in the runtime?
But that's the okay. So my point is you are a service. So the configuration is something that the plugin owner has to do, not the runtime. I expect you to call and you to give me an answer. Not I expect you to call and I have
installed.
to do your work and,
So what just to clarify what I understand what you are saying. So if we go to this model, so when we practically disabling all the paths related to CNI inside runtime.
yes.
So runtime not reading config any longer, runtime doesn't execute the CNI. So it's only calls to external
Yes.
provider to do that.
It's
When it's fine, yes.
it's the only way that the problem is you guys the moment that you are reading config, you are on the hook of the network. And I don't think that it's giving any benefit to the runtime to be so leaking so much details of the network config.
Well, but that's what currently both Container D and Cryo are doing.
But that's why I'm saying, but you still need to deal with the backwards compatible, but you
The
start to
backwards mode, right.
modularize the thing, right? What you're saying is that in a 3.0 whatever version, you still can have this model to say, okay, I don't know about the network. I just have a call when I created the thing, and the thing need to give me the parameters I need to configure.
Yeah. So I think you guys have both come to the same place I was talking about earlier, where we would have a mode inside of the container runtime that actually makes the switch for if we're using an NRI, CNI, right, plugin model, or we're using the existing code path. And you're just
Yeah,
moving that switch down into the
Yeah, but
plugin.
well, that's what
Yeah.
I'm trying to say is like, well, if we go that route, when NRI protocol will be completely declarative, saying like I want network, and return will be, hey, here's what I configured for you, without any additional details.
Yeah.
And when inside that plugin, it will be handling like reading the old CNI configurations, executing the old CNI thing.
Yep.
So practically, like this piece of code which was previously in runtime will be moved into this
Yeah.
plugin.
Right. So,
For-
so that plugin will have a listener on the changes to the config so that it knows
Yeah,
when it gets
yes.
to that,
Yeah,
then
yeah.
it's already preloaded it. Yeah. That's fine.
And that
Same
can,
code, just moved.
yeah, and that can be actually one of the standard NRI plugins, even we compiled in.
Yeah,
Well,
it could
and
be.
the only tricky part about moving it out, from my perspective, is it's not just setting up the network, it's also setting up the network namespace first, right? Or
but
using or switching to host. If we're switching to host, we won't even call the NRI plugin.
You don't set up the network namespace in the CNI.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I meant container
I
runtime.
misunderstood.
Sorry.
I
Yeah.
misunderstood. Sorry.
Yeah, no, yeah, right. Yeah,
Yeah,
we
but namespace is set up by shim, isn't it?
no.
In the OCI spec, you have these two modes because I didn't know. It's one is Ramsey creating the network namespace, and other is you
Depends
guys
whether
are
you use it or
creating
not.
the container is creating the network namespace.
Yeah, and I think it's shim. It's not like it's not really container, it's shim.
Well,
So the one which starts
yeah,
with close container.
Okay. Well, I think that models at least some
I don't-
broader
yeah.
discussion and give us a room for experimentation with annotations and all these things to expand the thing. What I think, and I really strong suggest, is to not leak the CNI API
Anywhere,
like-
just keep it confined in this plugin.
Let's do
Yeah,
a
let's-
new thing,
yes,
network, IP, whatever, because the CNI mixes configuration with declarative. The configuration of the plugin with the attributes of the network, and that thing is a source of confusion, as you say. Okay, I
Yeah.
need to call IPAN, and the runtime expect an IP. Doesn't expect you to know that you need to use the ICP or the whatever thing. They just want the IP, and I think that we need to. The interface has to be declarative, as you say. The moment that you start to put random things that are open to interpretation for the guy the other side, we are going to have the same problem we had today.
So Antonio, can you help us to like review and define these parameters? What we will be passing for both of those hooks?
Yeah.
So practically, what is like? Let's say start the network. We have the pod ID. We have container ID. At that point we don't have, right?
No.
So we have probably just like the pod ID. And return result, what it will be like list of IP addresses, something else?
I have that in the ARNet because I did the exercise, and what I did is I took systemd. The best thing that I observed in this thing is the more that you are close to other guy that is doing the same thing, the better for everybody.
Yep.
Okay.
And I got systemd has a network thing, and I think that we should be close to that because that's also what the people expect, right? The moment that we start to think a new API is more complicated, and systemd was a network did. So MAC address, IP, mask, and I don't know what's the other. Should be the ones. Then you can start expanding in another things like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I
And
have
there's
that
multiple
exercise.
platforms.
I already did it.
If you have some idea of one, please share.
Yeah, I have it in the ARNet. I have it. I designed that API.
Okay.
I'm doing that. I'm taking an interface and then allowing the user to define the parameters. So I have this model of response, whatever. And I took it from systemd. So I can clean it up and put it in a doc to
Okay, we probably just need to look what we did already in DRAnet and use it as a basis. Yeah.
Well, I find that easy to think about
Yeah.
because it's just, I mean, how Linux configures the network interface is kind of now.
I told you, we trust you. I know what you have like a lot more experience than us for that. So that's why, yes, we will look what we did and we will start ask questions.
Okay, I'm super happy.
But Mike, with Zappa, so are you going?
It's a similar thing. They just have
No,
to get
but-
line meld.
No, but what I mean is like, are you going to talk to him about what we discussed, or
Oh, yeah.
or is better to have like separate call with him to get alignment?
Well, recommendation would be to set up a work group because we're not going to be the only set of people that need to be involved, right? The
Well, in the past few years, it's only a set of people who were actively trying to do something.
that may be true, right?
The thing with Mike's proposal, I didn't read the last one. It was one point that he wanted to do a lot of things in the kubelet, and now I don't understand what is.
Now he's talking about doing this, in a service basically, which is what
it's
we
not
have, which
similar
like
to this?
yes, like
Okay,
yeah, similar to yeah.
Yeah, my point to all of this is like, well, first of all, like the direction of events, like we need to be CRI driven, not the other way around. And second thing is like, let's not create another interface,
yeah.
just like let's piggyback on what we have already. I mean, just extending it to support like more messages, more RPC calls.
Yeah.
Because like we have also validator. I really hope we will start to get this authentication. So we can say like, well, you are allowed to set up something and you are not.
So now, once we are done, I have a question for you. But
Yeah.
it's okay. Okay. So now I really happy. I talk with Samuel a lot. We are in the same thing, and I'm really happy when I saw this required plugin thing. Right? It's required
Yes,
plugin, right?
it is.
And you can set it up in two ways, right? The config way in
So
the
you-
containerd,
yeah.
or with the via annotation thing.
Yes.
Okay.
You can use both at the same time.
Okay, so that's my question is, for the configuration thing is super complex because if you are in a dynamic environment and you say, oh, use my plugin, whatever thing, you're not going to ask the people, restart all your container, this on the other thing. On the annotation side,
We also have built-ins, plugins. This one would be a built-in plugin.
no, it's just another topic. I'm just switching. So the thing is on the annotation side, with the device plugin, I have a way on the device plugin response to say, okay, use this annotation and interact with the runtime via the kubelet. With DRA, I don't have that path, or at least I didn't find that path.
You have it through CDI.
Okay, can you explain it? I have to CDI. I want to say I'm DRA net,
No,
and
but
my
in
plugin is
CDI
required.
So in CDI we have annotations, but so you would like to have the annotation on the Podor container, right? So what you would like to do is that I would like to put in so you would like to put in from your DRA driver the annotation that I require this plugin for this container to start.
I need DRA net to say this is required for this pod.
Yeah.
I don't want to install a webhook.
Yeah.
Because the webhook
yeah.
thing is a nightmare. I have I have DRA that says only announce my thing, so I have the nothing can be scheduled until my driver is running in the kubelet. But the NRI may take some time. I need a way to, and I don't want to do out of band communications and
I love
other
it.
things. So I need a way from the DRA driver that we have these no prepared resources. I think that's the ideal hook to say, okay, kubelet, now when you talk with the runtime, tell, look, this needs this driver to happen. And with the device plugin, we have the annotation field that I can populate, and then that went through CRI to the runtime. But with the DRA driver, it's missing. So I only can say CDI, but I didn't find how I can say CDI. This is not only for the
Well,
ARANET.
CDI was supposed to be replacement for the structure which was like device plugin allocate response is doing. So like theoretically, everything what device plugin allocate response is able to do, we should be able to do with CDI.
I'm just trying to put context on my request. My request from the ARANET and service message that I have people doing in right now is we need to be able to instruct the runtime via the kubelet that they need to run my NRI plugin.
But Sasha is right, Antonio, about that in CDI we have the concept of annotations.
Do you?
Yes, but we have not been, so it was added for kata containers. The kata guys are using it somehow. We don't know how it's used. But what we can do is that, so if you are,
the biggest difference is what, like when the device plugin was happening, the allocate response is passing through a CRI.
Yes.
So with annotation can be intercepted early. In case of CDI, first you are passing the CDI device ID, and when runtime reads it and expands it.
Then I can say
So-
my
so-
NRI plugin is required there with CDI.
currently not, because the problem is that those annotations, so as far as I understood, those annotations are not put on the container. It's so currently the annotation is for that, hey, once somebody in the VM starts executing, then it might communicate something from one side to the other side that it knows to do something extra.
Let me go back one thing. I'm not picking on the annotation. I'm picking on the functionality that I want to indicate the runtime. You cannot create this pod or containers without my NRI plugin.
So you just need to pass us some information, and then we.
I think that the way that you implement
so-
it is via annotation,
Mhm.
and I don't have a way to practice annotation, or I don't know if I have a way.
I got a
Okay.
problem. Christian, how currently you implemented this required plugin?
It's implemented by the validator. So you need to enable the built-in. You need to have some validator, and the easiest is that you just enable the built-in validator. And then that will enforce this. So if it sees an annotation required plugins, and it gets basically, so what it gets as input is the set of plugins which have been present while this initial adjustment was constructed. And if any of those is missing and there is no toleration annotated on the container that it can tolerate a missing plugin, then it will say that no, this cannot go, and it will be an error. Container creation will fail.
So practically what you need to do is in validator plugin, you need to see the annotations which was expanded from the CDI
Yeah,
device.
also take those into
They
account.
take those into account
Yes.
and then validate across. So when the DRA driver will say, like, we'll be preparing the CDI device, we'll say, like, we'll inject the annotation, what some plugin is required, and validator will just validate.
What I would do, because I also have my CDI hat on.
No,
So what I would do,
you need a solution.
yeah. So what I would do here is that I would propose. So if the CDI spec is providing a set of annotations, so currently it is so that during CDI injection, I think those are completely ignored. So we don't do anything with that. But I would use a dedicated annotation key or prefix, and I would annotate those also on the container. And then we would also always have it. So it would propagate automatically, and then really in the, so this is how I would propagate it so that it would be
what
available.
validate?
Yeah, so that the
Valid-
validator could see that, hey, do we have this special prefixing that, okay, these are the things which came from CDI, yes. So I will interpret it basically as the required plugin, and then,
Yeah.
so something like that. So I
So
think this should
it
be doable.
it should be doable. We
Yeah,
just
I
need to
think.
look what currently we did for
Yeah.
kata for
So we
annotations.
need to understand better what is this.
My question is, so you tell me that I can use CDI to create this annotation of a required plugin?
I
Yes.
think you will be able
You
to
should
do
be.
that, but you
Okay.
need to do
But
some
that
extra,
works for me.
work.
That
Yes.
works for- no, I just want to have it clean and in a standardized way. So that's why I don't want you to focus on the annotation thing. I just want, I'm connected to the array, but my NRI is still not working. And some pod is getting through without me being called back. And that's the part I need to solve, and I didn't find a way to do it.
But again, like it's a great question. But how come you have already like node prepare call but your NRI part is not yet registered.
That's something.
Or you have like two separate processes for doing that.
No, I don't know exactly, but Garaf is the guy at Google working with me in the internet. They have some setup and something is rolling out. I don't know, the runtime restarting or something. It's a race.
So
There is not something that happens often.
at some point he hit the race condition.
Yes, and
So-
the race. I think that the runtime is restarting.
So they reconfigure, probably
Yes.
they change container the configuration, they need to restart container day, and it takes a while before everything gets up.
That's
So
why
they-
when you run EDUE tests, it always runs container D and then restarts it
But
after it
but
sets the
Christian,
configs.
Christian,
But-
what's happening if we are right now is required plugin is not present? We are rejecting.
It's an error. We return, so basically we return an error for the container creation.
What kubelet will do? Like it will try
We retry, yeah.
retry. So we are getting like in the
Basically,
recurrence loop.
crash loop back off eventually.
Yeah, that's fine. The
It's
problem is that
fine for you.
yeah, because
Yeah.
the problem is that the pod is getting through and say, oh, I have an
Everything
interface,
is
and then
fine.
you go there, they don't have an interface here.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So when it's just validation of annotations and should work for you.
I just need you to tell me how do I do
Yeah.
the thing. I know that I can send a CDI. I was checking in the CDI repo. I didn't know how to add this required plugin annotation. But if you just pray me, for me that's fine.
Well, we don't have ready-made
So-
solution, but we know
Yeah,
how we can do
So
it.
there are bits and pieces missing for us in CDI and the validator, but we will add those.
Oh, that's great.
So what I can do, I can try to pull together something and then show you that this is what we have, and then you can try it and then we see if it's good
Oh,
enough.
that was
Okay.
awesome. I just don't need something complicated. I just
Yeah,
need
yeah.
a classroom.
Okay.
You're talking about the NRI CDI
Yes.
implementation. Okay. Yeah.
No,
Or
I think this would.
because
so
right now
so-
CDI is handled also separately from the
Yeah,
NRI
but
plugin.
Yeah, but this is not, so this is basically so we will need to propagate the CDI annotated annotations.
That's what I'm saying.
Somehow
You have two
to the
choices.
validator.
Yeah, you have a design switch to decide on whether we're going to also move CDI into an NRI plugin,
No,
and
we-
then
No,
you
no.
would get your annotations
Mike,
that way.
Yeah, I
Mike,
didn't do that.
Mike, we can do CDI injections from NRI plugin, but right now it's like it becomes so, how to say, the core feature. What many people are depending on it. So
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
it doesn't make sense
Well,
to move.
so
it
is CNI. It's a core feature that's
But it's more problematic than CDI being in
Yeah,
core runtime, I
timing.
think.
yeah, it's a timing thing.
And it has more legacy.
A
and-
couple of years from now,
So-
yeah.
So it is like
CDI
it is,
beat NRI out the door by about 2 years.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what I am thinking is that I will update CDI so that we will put the annotations which are currently not put. So the CDI annotations will be also propagated to the container, and then I can consume it in the validator, and then I can.
Right. So just
And
map
then
map for now. and
then for you it will be you would not put the annotation on the container, but you would put the annotation on the device. So the CDI spec, and then from that it will be propagating to the container where the device gets injected, and then I will consume that
And
in
that's
the
why that's
validator.
I run in the Rampod sandbox hook. So when you say container,
Yes.
that's the part that I'm confused. Does it work for me or?
So it's in it's in the but you can
Ah,
we do put it on the okay, so you
Wow.
I don't remember if we did CDI for pods. I think it was just container.
No, I don't mind. I'm just
Yeah.
asking now that you're mentioning container because I run in Rampod sandbox. If it makes any difference or it's just a
It does.
semantic
Yeah.
problem.
but basically it's the container startup which should be prevented by missing plugin, right?
Right.
I just want the pod to crash through. And they need to retry the network hook.
Okay, so we should prevent the pod sandbox.
I run it the Rampod sandbox because this
Yes,
the,
yes, I
the
understand.
network
Yeah.
is created. So I cannot tolerate just restarting containers. I need the Rampod sandbox to
fail.
to fail or to call me again until I'm ready.
But when if from runtime we are returning error to creating a sandbox, will the kubelet retry or will it?
Yeah,
because-
kill
Yes,
the-
it will.
kill the retry.
As long as we return the error.
Yeah.
If we
Okay,
yeah.
yeah, because I remember it was some corner case when the Kubelet was saying like, no, I'm not going, like it's permanent error.
No, no, Kubernetes on
But
ramp
yeah,
on sandbox as well.
if it'll never get to ready until the network is set up.
Okay, that
For run pods and box, do we have a hook
Mm.
or not?
so
Yes.
for Rampart sandbox, what we don't do, we do not do any validation. So I mean, because we cannot alter currently anything in the pod, validation is not hooked into Rampart sandbox.
You can add annotations.
But we need to add it.
Yeah,
I mean, like as soon as we will start to do things,
yes,
well, Antonio, a bit more work to do.
Well, look, it's
yeah,
I just I have a lot of people into NRI from networking service meshes, for example, because
Okay.
they were hooking into the CNI thing and they have a lot of problems with compatibility.
okay.
And then the problem that they have is this is they need to instruct the runtime to say, wait for me. And we are trying to avoid adding webhooks. Webhooks is not really a good solution for, especially for a project. You ask the user to install something
Yeah,
that fails.
cannot trust it that it's always there.
Then so
Right, so I checked it with CDI spec. So we have overall spec annotation and we have the device annotation, but all of those are internal to a CDI.
Yeah,
So what we don't have in the spec edit or container edits, we don't have annotations. We only have like environments and mounts. So what we cannot,
don't.
we don't.
So it's not in the edit part, but it's in the
It's outside.
separate.
It's
Okay.
outside. So it's only like internal
Mhm.
annotations within the CDI. So what we can do is like we in container edits we can add the annotations. So like when we will be propagating it properly, like the same way how it was like in device plugins.
Yeah,
And when you will be able to catch it in the validator.
yeah, but even with that, it's so that
So for ransom box, it's not helpful.
yeah, it's not because it's not so. I mean, CDI is not
It's,
concerned about
CDI
it's
at that time it's still not.
It's not involved. It comes later.
Yeah, we don't know about it yet.
Yeah. Mm. Yes.
So back on your point, you want to be called back potentially depending on the network setup. That's fine, that's fair, but I would call out that I want that pod create and then start first so that we're awaiting to start until you've replied.
right, because the problem is that especially when we talk about security network, right? That's a special case for service mesh. People just mostly use the service mesh for NTLS security and everything. If you just go through, then you are open wide on the network. And Kubernetes doesn't have any security mechanism. So that's why it's critical. And these usually are day two operations. You don't install the cluster and you set up everything. Right? With CNI kind of because it's required, people install the things just before people start to use it. But this new service meshes applications kind of thing, they come the day after, right? And then when they are installing, people are also running workloads, and then they raise, the new node with the new installation. So they need a way to say, let me tell the runtime not to run the pod without me, having to do annotations and all the other things, or
the new mode.
webhooks, or
We'll have a new mode, yeah,
Yeah.
a remote mode or something on the pod network setup.
because it's not this is the additive functionality of networking I was talking about, right? It's people need an IP and whatever to get going, but then they need, I want this to be secure, or I want to be tunneled through TLS, or I mean,
Take away a network device, add a network device.
and these are always second projects, they are not and then they come later, and then people get a lot of mad, especially with service meshes when they are not in the NTLS thing. Yeah, security stuff.
Yeah, everybody wants access to NVIDIA's high bandwidth network as well.
Well, that's another topic now that is coming, right? And it's super common.
Yep.
I was talking with one NVIDIA.
It's not your pod network, but it's a
Yeah.
pod-to-pod communication channel.
Yes.
Yep.
They have all these autobahn,
Yep.
Yes,
RDMA,
hidden,
InfiniBand.
hidden from the
Yeah.
rest of the infrastructure, if I understood correctly.
And that's
Hidden, but needs to be allocated in DRA.
Mm.
So
and the race and the problem with those things is that they are also very expensive and they just have all these times that they what is mean time to fail. I don't know. They have some these
Oh,
metrics
geez.
that
oh boy.
that they start to move to money and say, oh my god, yeah, it's important. You're investing a lot of money on
So it's not
look,
5 nines.
yeah, it's
Okay.
incredible.
All right.
Well, I need to drop it.
Yeah, we already think used 12 time slot.
But
I
this
don't
was
know.
useful for us because we need to think a little bit of how we will do this.
Yeah.
I will be fine going with the container breaking thing until you have the definitive solution for the pod. But if you just can give me, especially because it's flaking on the CI, and at least I can stop the
But
bleed.
Antonio, I mean, like for container, we have a option to do it. I mean,
Yeah, but-
we still need to do on the CDI part, but we can do it with validation. But for pod, we don't have anything
We don't,
yet.
and I think that's, yeah.
For pod, it will be a bit more complex to
Uh,
implement.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. If you just can give me now the interim solution for container.
But would that work for you that we only fail because isn't it so that at that time so is it enough for you that we fail those containers which would be then running in incorrectly set up pod?
I'm telling you, this some person internally is managing the project that is running the things and he explained me the problem and we can try. It's not something urgent, but it's a flaw in the design
Yeah.
that we have this race. So if you just give me try this, I can give you
Yeah.
feedback. I cannot tell you if it's
Yeah,
going
yeah,
to
yeah,
work
yeah.
or not. I think that it's going
But we
to
also
work.
need to go and
But Christian, I think it will be fine for them because like if we are injecting the network device only when the container reference in the claim is started, for us it's exactly the same point of like create container.
Well, let's try with that first because that we have some ideas how to do that.
Yeah.
And then let's see if it's good enough, and if not, then we think
When we were coming back to the previous point of like we need
some-
CRI and proper
yeah,
proper state machine
and
for
we need to have this at the
Pods.
pod level.
We're gonna have to have Sergi in this work group because this is, yeah, just saying, there's,
yes, I know.
because what you just brought up is a tricky space.
Yeah.
We have sidecars as well,
Mm,
right? So which one is the first main container?
No,
It's
not,
not obvious.
it's not about the main container, it's about
The container that needs the network set
the
up.
container which will need to use that
Yes,
interface
which is all
not
of-
DRAnet prepared.
That's why we don't return the pod sandbox start successfully until we've got the network up and running.
No, but as I understood for Antonio, it will be not a problem like if a container fails.
Well, I don't know. I think that it will work. But my point is,
I
if
mean,
you just
like,
can give me something to work, I can give you feedback.
yeah.
I don't know.
But
today.
Mike, the thing is what like you might have as many sidecars as you want.
Yeah.
But in pod spec, it's specified which container actually needs this DRAnet device.
No, we in DRA we move the resource claim to the pod level. It's not associated to. That was my
That's my next question. Why did we do that? What?
We moved that because it's DRA was a container concept and they say, look, we all these network people want to
How we are
to do it
receiving
at the pod level.
NRI call then? Are we getting the pod level
We got pod.
pod level.
CDI devices?
No, we don't know what they are at that point.
Or are we getting them injected in the all?
Is there such a thing as a pod level CVI device?
We don't have that information at this point in time. But we could,
No, but do we
but we should.
do we have it at all in the CRI level?
It has to go through Rampart sample. It's the only call to
Yeah, but I
CNI.
mean,
We could add
I don't
annexation.
remember how it was implemented. Like,
I don't
we-
know, me neither.
so
the-
we have like
CRA, yeah.
I see like three variants how it was done. Like variant number one, it was added to the run pod sandbox, which I doubt. Variant number two, it's not
Annotation.
it's not visible anywhere, so it stays in the kubelet only. So like it's not passed completely to runtime. And variant number three, kubelet injecting that CDI ID into all the containers inside the pod.
Oh, now I got what you said. Yeah, I don't know neither.
Oh, but the pause container,
I know that from the
Everywhere.
I
API.
can't.
From the API perspective, it's in the pod samples. That's something I can guarantee.
That's what I'm saying. They can't.
In the pod spec, not in the container stanza.
Yeah, but I mean, like
They-
when we are getting it to
Yeah, I
runtime,
don't know. I don't.
well, in which part those? So
Yeah.
we need to check where we are getting it. Because actually, Christian, for CPU, it might be the same thing. So
Yeah.
like,
But
if
for
it
the-
will-
I was
so-
so even with this old DRA front end that we had, so I was experimenting with pod level claims, and I was getting them just right. So I had no problem.
where?
In the DRA prepare.
Well, DRA
Yeah,
prepare,
but
yes,
what you are
but
asking is that do we get it? So do we know?
Is it passed through?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or do we have the same information somehow available once NRI level call
Yes.
comes in? Probably not.
Yet another
Or-
piece of
or-
pod information.
Or you be matching just by pod ID.
I have, yeah, it's exactly so that you have to save some information for yourself that later you can remember that this is what I decided then and now I need to put it into practice.
Yes.
And that's why we were adding,
Or
so this
Or
is why
do a
we
fallback
added,
to your
so that,
code to
for instance, it
check
was
the-
not possible.
Sorry, I got
anyway, so we were using
disconnected
this
from
environment
the-
variable
There you
hack.
go.
Yeah.
And that's why we added it so that we are saving, so we now get all the injected devices by ID. That this is not needed.
I think that we need to look into the code.
Yeah, we need to look in the code because I don't remember how it was implemented for pod level.
Yeah, I know that we do pod level for sure, but I don't know how it gets into the containers.
Well, the easiest way how to do it is like when you do prepare a resource in the DRA side, you get the pod ID.
Yes.
So you can save the pod ID with whatever claim
That's what
ID
we do
was.
for CPU.
And when we get the run pod sandbox, we get the ID. So we just like inside memory, we are fetching the needed information.
Yeah, but the problem is that the NRI leg is not connected. That's the problem I have.
Yeah, but it's still like it's not about being connected. It's like it's still one process. So like
Yeah, no, I have that. That's not the problem.
It's-
I'm single
yeah.
process. I have two legs.
yeah,
I
yeah.
have a leg in the
Yeah, but
okay.
what I'm saying like is what like it's not necessarily we are passing that information through the CRI, but we know it from the previous state
Yeah, I
from prepare resource.
yes. That's why I say it's the model that it worked for me in the RNet, and it took me a lot to get it right. Is I move all the complex stuff in the node prepared resources. Then from there I provide I create an internal API that is declarative. And in NRI, just read that information because I cache in the process that information, and then I execute. And that works perfectly. Before I was doing a lot of things in NRI, and it gets timeout, it gets the flaky things. And this model is pretty solid. That's what I say is and also the when you move to the runtime, you start. I don't know. I think that the kubelet start to assume that some resources are taken. I don't know. It's more complex. The other is pretty safe. I need to.
Cool. All right. Thanks.
Well, then looking forward, I have two things to change you. I will try to reach out to you and Mike to work on this CNI decoupling and thing, and I will try to reach out to you to see if I can say I can fix this flakiness with the CDI annotations or
Yeah.
whatever.
And I will try to, in practice, make sure that something can work for you on this, and then
That will be great. I mean, it's flaky and race, and I will love to have a system with that race because
It'll be nice if we can work with this into the agentic stuff as well and have a revoke, right? Or a timed, we had discussed earlier,
For what?
for this amount of time, this particular agent, right, that we're running the sandbox will have access to a particular network device, but only for this purpose.
Okay, I have,
It's it's a longer discussion. I don't want to boil the ocean, but
no, but I have this is on my plate.
okay.
So I didn't know that you were working on that. Okay, we need to share.
Yeah,
Sorry,
Cogenti,
what-
Agent Sandbox, SIGAPs. Yeah, I've been working with Janet Boyle.
With Janet
starting to-
and Justin.
Yeah, MCP operators, that kind of stuff. Yeah. We're doing all kinds of interesting things.
It's
in that
also
space.
with Janet.
IBM
Okay.
Research, but
Okay.
yeah, Signode, yeah.
Okay, I will.
And Murnau Patel.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
from
I'm doing more work with them on that as well. And we get a ton of people back in IBM Research that are excited about it. But
yeah, that's super hot. I didn't know that you were these days, and
Yeah.
all this is snapshot restore and
right, this is yet another type of resource that needs to have that same kind of, go.
okay,
All right.
cool. Well, thank you.
See ya. Any
Thanks,
questions,
everybody.
Brad?
Mike,
Good.
Mike, can I give you one task, which is after signing this thing off, jump on into the Markdown, so HackMD, and update all the attendees in there.
Oh.
Or not if you don't want to, but if you can, that would be awesome.
We are also now
Yeah.
getting more people to contribute.
Thanks, Mike.
Microsoft. So yeah, so if you have features or other companies in Japan, Masaru, I don't know the name. Finitu, or I think that they are kind of a startup thing. They are
I don't know what's his name.
and yeah, anything that you
I-
think that can we improve or any issue that you see, you just ping me directly. Okay, I have also internally invested in that. So it's growing and yeah, we just need feedback. I think it's big. We have to continue our discussion. Everyone just like this.
Yep. Okay, all right.
To bring out
So.
for requirements, and I think that we have clear what we want to do. So
Just